Hey guys, Takamasak here. I have just yesterday finished the book I was reading, so I wanted to kind of do a little brief, not so much a review, maybe a little bit of a review, but just talk about it. Hopefully some other people have read it too, and then we can maybe kind of discuss it. I think that's more of the main idea of these things, but the book I have finished was a book by James Dashner, who, if you are anywhat familiar with him, he did the Maze Runner series. So the Maze Runner, Scorch Trials, The Death Cure, and I think there was one more. But he also wrote very closely in terms of when he wrote them to the Maze Runner. He wrote the 13th Reality series. And I just finished the first book of that, which is called I believe it's the Case of Mystery, or the Journal of Curious Letters, or something along those lines. It's kind of a bizarre title, but so what this book is about, I don't really want to I'm still working on what exactly I want to say in this. I don't want to give out too many spoilers because I do kind of want people to go out and read the book, but I guess that's kind of inevitable. So on the off chance you're reading this, minor spoiler alert, I suppose. The 13th Reality series follows the main character of Atticus Higginbottom, which is quite an interesting name. This book it's probably directed at young to mid-teens, but I overall found it relatively interesting. Atticus Higginbottom, he gets this note in the mail just absolutely randomly. You hear about who sends it, a character named MG, which will play a larger part in the story further down the line. But he gets this mysterious note, and it's just the first of 12 clues that he needs to solve in order to figure out what he needs to do, essentially to meet this MG person, which is, I believe that takes up probably a very large chunk of the book. And I do kind of like stuff like that. I can't follow along with the clues and try to figure them out in my head. I listen to audiobooks, so I don't have the words in front of me. So I just kind of wait for the character to figure out, and then I can kind of look back and, oh yeah, I'm dumb. But yeah, I guess that's another thing I can talk about through audiobooks. The narrator is Mark Wright for the first book, and he also does the second book. I'm about 14 chapters into the second book, which I'll get into that when I finish that book. He's okay reading it. I prefer to have somebody who is a little better with different types of characters. I mean, there's an Italian girl and an African-American guy from Florida. So he kind of does a little bit with the Italian girl, and he has a little bit of an accent with the other character too. But he's not the best at it. So, I mean, I guess I can deal with him overall being the narrator. I'd rather have somebody read it to me anyway, other than sitting down and looking for several hours to do the book myself. But yeah, it follows Atticus. He goes by Tick in the book. He ends up solving all these very bizarre, some more difficult than others, clues, which, like I said, I wouldn't have figured out on my own. But yeah, like I said, that takes up a very, very big chunk of the book before anything really super exciting happens. I mean, there's some weird events. It does introduce a few bizarre creatures, which is another thing I really like, reading these young adult, or not young adult, I suppose, teen, well, I suppose it would be young adult too. But yeah, they introduce these weird types of creatures, and I like to see what people come up with. Like, there's this wraith-type monster. The name of it eludes me for the time being. But it's just, it appears and then it develops a face As you would expect, it'd be kind of gaseous. And apparently if you... a slink wraith? Something like that? Something like that. But if you hear it for 30 seconds, it's supposed to, like... I believe they refer to it as, like, scramblize your brain or liquefy your brain or something like that. So, kind of interesting, stuff like that. I like to see what people come up with. And there's a few types of robots that are fairly relevant, I suppose. They didn't really talk much about them or what the point was. Like, there was this box in Tick's room. The first letter, by the way, he had the option to, if he didn't want to be any part of this, it warned that what he would be getting into is very dangerous, so he had the option to burn it. And somehow, it's explained later, that if he were to burn it, this MG person would know, so that was his out, if he wanted out. And there was this weird box thing, they called it some kind of rat for some reason, I can't remember the minor creatures. But anyway, it was like a rat. He hears something slithering around in his room. It has kind of like a whirring noise. And he finds it the next day, or the next time he hears that sound. I don't remember if it's exactly next day. But he finds the box, and then somehow it opens, and there's all these little mechanical wasps or something like that that come out and just sting the living hell out of him. They mentioned it like several hundred times. He had to go to the hospital, and then they went back to the house and never saw anything. And then I don't believe they ever made any more mention about that, if I recall correctly. They bring up the company that will be... It hasn't really announced itself a whole lot yet. I mean, it's been briefly talked about, but Chew Industries. And what this whole deal is about, near the end of the book, Tick learns that there are a ton of different realities, what they call the 13 realities. And I don't remember if Reality Prime, which is like the one major... I'll use their wording for it. They were saying it's like a tree. Like the main trunk of the tree would be the prime reality, and all the main branches of it would be like a separate reality where things might be similar. You'll have your separate self, and then there's several of those, and then off of those realities there are even smaller realities, and a lot of those don't make it. They call them fragmented realities, and a lot of those end up being destroyed. So it's a really interesting concept. I wish they would have gotten into that a little bit more in the first book. But I guess I did have a little fun listening to the whole Clue deal. So, I mean, it's definitely worth a read. Like I said, I hope they get into a lot more detail in the second book. It's already a lot more action, I guess I would say. There's not a whole lot of that type of... If you're looking for like action and adventure, and there's not really a whole lot of that in the first book, which is kind of what I was hoping for. But it might be, then again, it might be like the Maze Runner, and it kind of picks up as it goes along. It's more of like, I don't know if you want to call that dystopian, the 13th reality. I suppose you could call it that. There are people that are trying to interfere and screw with the realities overall. But, yeah, I don't want to say a whole lot more on it, because like I said, I do want you to go try to check this out for yourself. It was written by James Dashner, like I said, and I believe published in 2008 or 2009, so it's fairly easy to find an audiobook of it nowadays. I want to say it's 3 or 4 long, so it'll take me quite a while to get through. I might be able to get through a book a week, but I'm not sure. So yeah, just even if you've read it already, feel free to talk to me about it. Don't post any spoilers, please, if you have. But yeah, I'd say it's definitely worth a pickup thus far. And if it falls off the cliff in the next book, I'll let you know after that review. So there you have that. The 13th Reality, the Journal of Curious Letters by James Dashner.